Now, I don't have a PhD like Peter, so if you got like questions about concentrations and stuff, you got to ask Peter. I'm just a attorney. I'm an environmental attorney, as was mentioned. But I'm not just an environmental attorney. As Kelsey explained, you might also call me experienced. I'm an old attorney. So I worked at the AG's office, and I was, interesting factoid, I worked on the 2006 interim agreements for the Colorado River. Also as a water referee, and then in private practice, I worked with ditch companies and towns, and I worked for the Ute Mountain Utes for a while, and also, you can't tell any of the environmental guys here, but I worked for some oil and gas interests too. So, and I bring that up because one thing I learned from all of that, and it's, I think it was stressed to me again today at this, Becky talks about how she just has these slides and just kind of talks. And I got to apologize that I come from the Becky Mitchell School of Presentations, in which I just like to kind of talk. So, but the reason some people call that laziness, and I call it adaptive management, because what I can do is talk about some of the things we talked about today. And one of the most interesting things was we were talking about our issues both from this really large macro level of what's going on in the Colorado River and how are we going to deal with, we got 13 million acre feet instead of 15 million acre feet. But we also talked about things on a real micro level about how we can navigate these problems. And Ben gave us a really good example with Ben Wolcott with how the steps that they take at their level to make sure they can continue their practice. So when we think about big stuff, we got to think about the little stuff too. And that was, oh, here you go. I get to tell a old waterman a story, and when I started as water attorney at the AG's office, we would go, I would go out in Division 4 with the water referee at that time was, water referee was Aaron Clay. And we would drive around in his pickup truck and we'd talk to some of the farmers. And they would get I remember one conversation where Aaron had like a stick in the dirt and he's like, Bill, if you just take your water over here, and Fred, you took your water over here, it's all going to work out. Everybody will get their water. So that's maybe a true story, but it's more or less true. But it again points to me, when you think about these problems, you've got to think about the plumbing too, right? I mean, plumbing is a big part of it, whether you're upstream or you're downstream. So what I want to talk about is the Outstanding Waters Program and how that can actually be a tool on a micro level to actually address some of the water quality issues in the Southwest. And that's what I'm here and I'm supposed to talk about, but I'm not gonna, because it's late in the day and Charlie said we have to have audience participation, all right? So I'm gonna tell a story and I'm gonna make it about my family history, so you guys are really bored. But you need to listen very closely because I'm going to spring a question on everybody and you're going to have to answer it. So here's my family history. So when I was a kid, I'm fifth out of 6 kids, and my mom had all these kids and she didn't know what to do with everybody, and we were always making messes. Like I remember taking a hammer and attacking my mom's piano with it one day, which is not a real good thing. But anyway, she formed her own rules, and she said, all right, you guys, if you need to play, you can play in the basement because you can make a lot of noise down there. It's already a mess, I don't care what really happens down there. And then we also knew we could kind of play in the kitchen if we didn't make too much of a mess, Or we weren't supposed to go into the living room at all. And you guys probably had something like this where the couches have the plastic on them and there's a piano in there and a white shag rug and everything. And I was like, screw it. My mom wasn't home, and I went in there with a glass of grape juice one day, and I dumped it all over the white shag carpet. And my mom, it took her like a year to recover from that. All right? That's my story. So Jenny Russell. Do you want to forego this one? All right, how does that relate to the Outstanding Waters Program? Right, that's pretty good. But you never could quite get it out, right? Well, that's That's a creative answer. All right. Steve. There you go. Protect the high quality stuff. So what the Outstanding Waters Program is a way to divide the waters of the state up into three categories. We have what's called, let me get these names right, what's called use protection, where you're allowed to make use of the water as long as it's consistent with existing uses and you don't bring the water quality below certain standards. Then you have anti-degradation category, which is you can degrade it a little bit, but not too much. And then you have the outstanding waters, which are, it's like your mom's living room, right? We're going to be really careful in there. We're not going to spill grape juice all over the place. We're going to have a part of the house that we protect because we want to keep something nice. So those are the outstanding waters. So I want to go to the next slide, actually. So this is just describes what an outstanding water is. It's authorized by the Federal Clean Water Act, but it's actually under state law, and it has to meet certain high water quality standards. What they do is look at 12 different parameters and make sure that they're able to satisfy all 12 of those, and this is after several years of monitoring of the water. And once any entity can nominate a body of water as an outstanding water, but it also, once you've done that, you can't degrade the water below those certain high standards. So we set high standards for certain places and say that we're going to keep that water at that high level. And as it says here, you have a long process of review. There's actually a rulemaking before the Water Quality Control Commission, every 3 years. And the Department of Public Health and Environment administers these waters. There is another piece to it, which is, again, they must qualify under the 12 parameters, but it also needs to be outstanding, right? And I think that means you look at the water and go, outstanding, or something like that. But anyway, it needs to be an outstanding natural resource. It can also have recreational properties. It could have natural resource properties. And when we get those two together, we have something that we really want to protect. It's too late to go through this kind of stuff, right? So, but what we might talk about is the existing quality threshold is where we're saying this is what we got to keep. So some of the questions people hear all the time is, how does outstanding waters designation affect water rights? It doesn't affect water rights. It's a water quality issue. So water rights don't impact an outstanding waters designation. Downstream water users are affected by an outstanding waters designation only in this way. They're going to be getting better water, because if we protect these streams upstream, the downstream water users are going to get better water. And then what about pre-existing activities? Well, and new activities. The Water Quality Control Commission intends that existing activities will be protected. And you can see this quote here. And what that means is existing permits would be renewed under the same standards. Activities that are already occurring are considered, as it says here, to have not caused an issue with respect to this water. So we're going to allow those activities to continue. So we do have a couple candidates down here in the Southwest. There's the Upper Dolores candidate reaches, which you can see are here on the Upper Dolores. Here are some of the reasons that we wanted to designate this area as an outstanding water. But I think one thing to note is they're entirely within the San Juan National Forest. They don't cross or flow adjacent to any private property. There aren't discharges up here. So this is an area that's nice and clean. It doesn't look like it's going to get any worse because we have it in a really good environment. Another location we've talked about is some on the Animas. Just to go through this quickly, but again, we have similar issues with the Animas points, that they are on land, again, that is within Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management land. It's governed by existing land plans. So these are, again, areas that are clean, that don't have a likelihood of new discharges in any time in the near future being on those areas. And then finally, we have the Dolores candidate reaches as well. I might have been pressing the wrong buttons. There, the San Miguel River as well. And we have some nice stretches on the San Miguel where we actually have similar circumstances. So I'll just keep this short. We're looking at having certain reaches here in the Southwest designated as outstanding reaches. They're chosen because they are outstanding. They have wonderful natural resources features. They don't have the likelihood of new development in those areas. And by keeping those areas clean and pristine, we can actually make sure that you guys downstream are going to be getting better quality water. And here's my next quiz. So I had one more audience participation quiz, and it's again about my family history, because I had an uncle Bill, and Bill used to always say that he really wanted to die peacefully in his sleep like his grandfather, but not screaming in terror like the passengers in his grandfather's car. So that is my story. And Beth Van Verst has volunteered to describe how this story relates to outstanding waters. Steve Harris? Oh, Steve Wolf. All right, the truth is, go ahead. Really? You don't want to take it? All right, well, the answer is that's a trick question because I just like that joke. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you all so much for the presentation.